Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Veronica. Thank you for clicking the link to watch this video. Why is that on? Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Veronica. Thank you for clicking the link to watch this video. Without further ado, let's get started. Alright guys, Happy New Year, Happy 2025. So this is the first video that I'm filming to kick it off. I am going to be doing some topics that are repetitive, but I filmed a lot of my military topics a long time ago. So now being more mature, older, knowing a lot more in my career, I wanted to revisit the number one question that I still get to this day. And side note, I will be starting to check my DMs again. I took a long break from all of that, but I am going to be resuming that. But please, I may not be able to get to every single question, but I do try to respond as much as I can. My Instagram is always the same. Every social media I have is always Ronnie Luke, and I also have a TikTok now. Anyways, okay, so how to choose between being an officer versus enlisted and kind of what were my deciding factors. So now being 8 years into the Air Force, definitely I still feel positively that choosing to be an officer and pursuing that route was more so what has worked for me. So the number one thing is I knew once I started college that once I graduated, you do have to have a bachelor's or a master's to come in as an officer, depending on your career field. For specific details, always check with your recruiter. For that, after you get your degree, you usually will choose that route to become an officer. However, especially now in 2024, there are enlisted airmen who have full-fledged degrees but still choose to go the enlisted route. For me, and it was heavily influenced by my father, I'm not gonna lie, because of the amount of paperwork and doing the scroll and the GRE testing, I too got impatient while I was applying to be an officer. And I was like, you know what, I might just go enlisted, which is what a lot of people sometimes do. But it is harder depending on the career field to cross-train in, and then you have to wait for your eligibility period to apply to cross into the officership. So for me, I think I knew that once I figured out, okay, I don't want to do all that still, I just need to be patient. I think I knew for me it was like either officer or nothing. It has nothing to do with being in charge or a tier structure or whatever. I just knew more so I just personally knew for me that I would rather do a little bit more of leadership stuff up front from the very beginning, and my degree, and having parents who are both enlisted and they're like, you know what, you would make a great officer, you should pursue officer. That's kind of something I leaned into and leaned on. A lot of things that people don't really talk about because it's kind of like a little bit taboo is that you are in charge of enlisted airmen. And so some people are like, yeah, I want to be in charge, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just knew for me, it wasn't necessarily, I didn't know what being in charge really meant. Looking back in the military, so that wasn't a driving factor for me. For me, I was kind of like, when they were describing like you would lead, you would make the decisions of this, potentially you'll have your own flight or platoon. When I was considering Army as well and Navy, they're like, yeah, you would be in charge. And so in charge for me meant in charge of myself, not necessarily other people, but you will have subordinates when you choose being an officer, more than likely. The officer promotion, the pay obviously is definitely significantly higher, but with that comes requirements, heavier weighted punishments if you get in trouble, and then just certain expectations that sometimes are fair, a lot of times they're just not fair. So that kind of comes with the territory. I do feel like the enlisted structure does a great job of taking care of their own and kind of like really doing that camaraderie, the development. There's so much development for them, whereas officers, I would say now they're doing a little bit of a better job, but before, when I first joined, there wasn't a lot of like mentor type of like promotional programs at large for officers. So I actually just attended ironically, a flight leadership course, and I've been a flight commander 4 times. So at first I was like, ooh, I don't know how much I'm going to learn, but I was like, you know what, I'm going to take this opportunity, and I learned so much. So every opportunity that you get to learn and develop is great, and having that course is so unique to the base that I'm at. So I hope that it can be, expanded upon, because I know when you get to those smaller MTFs, those smaller bases that I was at, like Montana, they did have some officer development stuff, but you really had to seek it out. And then oftentimes too, you're so busy, especially at the medical groups, you're very, very busy. Like there's stuff, I work 10 to 12 hour days. And so you don't really have that much time to kind of breathe life into what you want to breathe life into. And so sometimes that comes at a cost of development. So you really have to seek it out on your own. Whereas the enlisted structure, in my opinion, it's really programmed in and really driven in. Yes, you have to seek it out, but there's a lot more development tools and a lot more grace. I feel like for officers, they're like, you should already know this. And you're like, whoa, I don't. So for me, that's kind of what drove me picking and really wanting to be an officer. Was I thought I would be in charge of my own decisions making, which has been both true and both very untrue at the same time. Another thing besides, the pay, the decision making, I really wanted a chance to kind of represent a tier that is not always well represented by people who look like me, both gender and ethnicity wise, race wise. And so that was for me something I love. I kind of secretly love being the underdog, or not necessarily going into fields where they're not necessarily known for certain things, again, for individuals who look like me. And so that was really something I wanted to pursue and to be proud of. And to be honest, I'm very competitive. And I thought, well, if I'm gonna join, then I want to get the most bang for my buck in decision making, in, benefits and pay for me, because I do have my college degree and all this other stuff. And so that's kind of the thing. But with that, right, student loan debt I still have, that I need to apply for that program so I can get it paid off. But with that, anyways, there's, you do have to pay for your own college, right, as an officer. And so for the enlisted, you serve your 4 years, you get the TI bill, or GI bill, TA assistance. For officers, you also get that, but you can't join without having your degree. So you will either incur some debt if you didn't have a scholarship or whatever. Whereas the enlisted, you literally can come in at 17, 18, do 4 years while pursuing your degree. That's all paid for. You can then separate. You have a degree, no student loan debt at all. So that's a bonus. And so those are some of the things you need to kind of configure out. And then the officer scroll, which is basically the scroll that every officer's name is on to join the military. It's not what it sounds like. It's basically paperwork to say that you have been approved by Congress, blah, 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 because everything is funded into the National Defense and Authorization Act budget. Anyways, that scroll, if it gets messed up, they only sign that so many times. And so that's honestly what delayed me. I should have came in probably 8 months earlier, but they messed up my scroll twice, the recruiter did. So I don't know what she was doing or what paperwork she was doing, but she was removed off my case, and I got another woman who successfully was able to get me to the finish line. But that's the kind of thing that can delay the processes. Your MEPS, your background for health, all of that stuff can also delay the process. And so becoming an officer is honestly a lengthy process. You don't go in and you don't, like the enlisted, they take their ASVAB and do all that, and then you get your scores back. You know where you can, which categories, which jobs you can kind of apply to. For the officers, I think, again, I've never been enlisted, so I'm only going off of kind of what I know with very limited knowledge. For the officers, it's very much you have to have your degree first. You have to have all your background stuff good to go first. There's certain requirements depending on your career field where you have to have certain tests, standardized testing taking place before they will even let you commission. And so that's kind of the process that can take. It took me 1.5 years from start to finish to finally get through the door, and it takes a long time. And so that patience, which I'm not the most patient person, but that patience, and then at first being told like, no, you're going to be an alternate, and then getting the call that I was selected, was very surreal. And it's crazy because I'm living the life that I prayed for and I wished for. And it's so weird because you don't think about it once you're in it. And now you're like, oh, wow, this is what I actually wanted for so long. And so I just encourage you, whichever path you choose, it's not a bad path. You'll know. Some people separate and they say officer is not for me. I have plenty of friends from my first assignment who are no longer in the military, or they're on the reserve/guard side. And then I have other friends who either commissioned or other enlisted coworkers who are like, you know what, officer is just not for me. I really like being in this sort of tier. And so it really comes down to personal decisions, what's available, what you qualify for, and what you're willing to kind of wait and pursue. I think either path that you take, you just have to know, and only you will know it in your heart of hearts. So people message me all the time and tell me, what should I do? I have this advanced degree, but they're only offering me enlisted. That might be because your degree doesn't qualify for some of the career fields that are available. If that's a choice, then you have to pick. Do you want to just join the military to join, or would you rather wait or, shop around, consider the Navy, the Army, the Marine Corps, the Coast Guard? And so there's other branches, but a lot of it, to be honest, is just really so personal. And so I thought in this remake of the updated video on how I chose, I would focus more on talking about how personal it is and less about like, yeah, officers do this, enlisted do that this time around, because you can go back and watch that video, but it's really so subjective. It really is. And there's no right or wrong answer that I can tell you. Only you will know your right answer and your right path. But overall, my parents were both enlisted and they're fantastic. I know a lot of enlisted people from just being in my military background, and they are fantastic. And some of them, there is no subservient role. Some of them are very, very educated, overqualified for their position just in general, and are very smart. And it has nothing to do. A lot of the stereotypes are like, if you're smart, you go officer. If you're not, you go enlisted. That is a horrible stereotype, and that's so not true. It just really depends on your path. And so I leave this with you. If you have any questions about maybe something that you would like to kind of talk about, we can kind of discuss that. You can always message me, and like I said, I'll get back to you. But overall, for me, I knew I wanted to become an officer from pretty much day one, especially talking with my dad, and then talking with my high school or college professor, who also told me about the MSC Corps, and he was like, you would make a fantastic officer. And he had no idea I was military background. And so those type of influences really helped mold mine, because I didn't really know what it was. Now, knowing what it is now, I'm like, whoa, all this stuff. But that can be another video on what, some stuff I can tell you on what really happens. But overall, it's a lot. So anyways, okay. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please stay tuned. I will be posting more consistent long-term videos every single week to kind of get back to myself. Like I said in my Christmas video, if you haven't watched that, please watch that, because the end kind of sums up what has been going on. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys later. Bye.